The underground market on planet Vorex 9 was not a place for hope. The air smelled like oil, fire, and fear. Creatures from every corner of the galaxy gathered in the dim hall. Traders, smugglers, criminals, and those who had nothing left to lose. In the center stood a rusted metal stage lit by flickering lights. A bored alien shouted into a microphone. Next item. Flesh contract. Young female. Strong body, quiet mouth. Half price. Most buyers were busy drinking or laughing. No one looked at the stage. Until she stepped up. Her name was Tyria. Her skin was soft gray blue, and her eyes were like broken stars. Her long dark hair was tied back in a rough braid. She wore torn clothes and a collar that marked her as property. She looked proud, even in chains, but her voice was tired. I am offering myself, she said, standing tall. Not for pleasure, not for games. I need credits, enough to feed my child. The crowd grew silent for a moment. Then came the laughter. She's serious. Who'd want a used-up alien like that? She's already broken. Tyria didn't blink. She stood still as stones were thrown at her feet. The auctioneer sighed. No bids? Then off the stage. I'll take her. The voice was quiet, calm, human. All eyes turned. A tall man stood at the back of the hall. Brown jacket, dust-covered boots, a small bag of coins in his hand. His name was Jonas Varick, just a cargo hauler. A man who passed through places like this and kept his head down. Today he didn't. The auctioneer blinked. You, human, you want this one? Jonas nodded. Yes, full contract. A quiet buzz moved through the room. Most thought he was joking. Some thought he was drunk. Tyria looked at him, suspicious. Her hands tightened behind her back. The auctioneer grinned. Fine. Human wants a slave. Human gets a slave. Sold. Paperwork was fast. Dirty credits passed from hand to claw. A heavy chain was placed in Jonas's hand, connected to Tyria's collar. Jonas frowned. This comes off first. The seller laughed. You're the boss now. Jonas walked to Tyria. She didn't move. He pulled out a small tool and broke the collar off in one snap. It fell to the ground. She stared at him. You're letting me walk? Jonas nodded. I'm not here to keep you, just to help. She narrowed her eyes. No one helps for free. Jonas looked her straight in the eyes. Someone should. They walked out of the auction hall together. No one followed. No one cared. Another human and another broken alien. Nothing new, but Tyria kept glancing sideways at him, waiting for the trick, the command, the cruelty. It never came. They reached his ship, a small cargo freighter named Endline. Jonas opened the hatch and motioned her inside. You can. Rest in the med bay, it's warm there. She didn't move. You bought me. I bought your freedom, he said. That's not how this galaxy works. He looked up at the stars. Then maybe it's time it changed. Inside he gave her clean clothes, food, a quiet room. Tyria sat alone holding the warm blanket he offered. She didn't understand it. She didn't trust it. But for the first time in months, she didn't feel cold. Not in her body. Not in her heart. That night, as she lay awake, she whispered to the darkness, just long enough. Let me live just long enough to send help to my daughter. She didn't know Jonas heard her, but he did, and his heart broke. Tyria woke up in a soft bed. She blinked slowly, her body unsure if it was dreaming. The room was warm, clean, and quiet. No cuffs. No chains. No voices shouting orders. Just stillness. And a folded blanket on her legs. For a moment she thought she had died. Then she smelled food. Real food. She stepped out of the room, careful, like prey entering a hunter's den. Her bare feet touched cool metal floors. The human's ship wasn't big, but it was tidy. Jonas stood in the tiny kitchen, cooking something in a pan. He didn't look surprised when she appeared. You slept for 12 hours, he said calmly. Tyria stood near the door, arms crossed, her back straight. Why didn't you lock the door? Didn't need to. You think I have nowhere else to go? I know you don't trust me yet. She narrowed her eyes. You're right. He placed a steaming bowl on the table. Food's not poisoned, if that's what you're thinking, he said with a half-smile. She didn't smile back. She sat slowly, hands tense, watching every move he made. The smell reached her first. Hot broth, soft grain, spices she hadn't tasted in years. Her stomach growled before she could stop it. She hated that sound. He said nothing. She ate. Jonas watched quietly from the other side of the table. No questions, no judgments. Finally, Tyria spoke. What do you want from me? He looked at her. Nothing. She didn't believe him. No one buys a slave for nothing, she said. Some want labor, some want pain, some want other things. He didn't flinch. I don't want any of that, he said simply. She stared. Then why? Jonas shrugged. Because you were selling your life, just to feed your child. That didn't feel right. Tyria blinked. For a long time, she said, nothing. Finally, she whispered, do you even know my kind? I know enough. Do you know what we were called during the purge? Yes. They called us worthless, wild, dangerous. I remember, he said. And still. You bought me, he nodded, because I also remember that we started the war, not you. Tyria pushed the bowl aside. She stood. Kindness is expensive, human. You'll regret it. Maybe, he said, but not today. Later that evening, Tyria sat alone in the ship's engine room. She liked the quiet hum of the systems. It reminded her of the old colony before everything burned. She thought about her daughter, her soft voice, her thin arms, her hungry eyes, and the last words Tyria had spoken to her. Through the prison fence, I will come back. I will find a way. Jonas entered the engine room quietly. I sent a comm message, he said. Tyria looked up fast. To who? He showed her the tablet. Recipient, Refuge Dome K3, Sector 9 message. Sent. Mother is safe. Help is coming. ID used. Clearance 88B, former Earth military civilian pass. Her hands shook as she took the tablet. How did you get this code? I used to be part of relief crews. We built that dome before the collapse. I kept a few old channels open. Tears filled her eyes, but they didn't fall. She was too proud for that, too broken, too afraid. You didn't have to do this, she said quietly. I know. You still don't want anything from me? Jonas looked at her. For a long time, he didn't speak. Then simply, I just want you to make it home. That night, Tyria lay awake again, not from fear this time, but confusion. Humans had taken everything from her, and yet, one had offered her everything back. Not with chains, not with orders, but with food, silence, and mercy. Tyria sat alone in the corner of the ship's small cargo bay. The lights were low. The hum of the engine buzzed softly through the floor. In her hand was the message Jonas had sent. She had read it 6 times already. Every word burned into her, heart like fire and water at the same time. Mother is safe. Help is coming. It didn't feel real, but she clung to it, because if it was real, her daughter still had a chance. Jonas walked in, carrying a folded blanket and a water bottle. You haven't slept. Tyria didn't look at him. Sleep is expensive. He sat across from her, not too close. She finally looked up. Her eyes were calm now, tired but steady. I want to tell you about her, she said softly. Jonas didn't interrupt. She's 7 cycles old. Her name is Seelin. She was born during the last refugee storm. We were stuck in an abandoned factory for 6 days. No light, no food, just whispers and cold metal. Jonas nodded slowly. She was sick from birth. Weak lungs. Couldn't breathe right in the artificial air. Needed medicine I couldn't afford. So I started working. Cleaning, serving, carrying crates in mining camps. Until one day someone said I was pretty enough to sell. Her hands clenched. So I did. Jonas leaned forward a little. And no one helped? Tyria's voice turned sharp. No. One even looked at me. She stared at him now. Until you. He didn't smile. I'm sorry it took that long. Silence passed between them. Then Jonas opened a small case and slid it across the floor. "What's that?" she asked. "Medicine," he said. "Oxygen cell boosters, nutrient vials, everything a child with her condition needs for at least 2 months. Tyria's heart stopped. She picked up one of the vials, hands shaking. The label was clear: human grade, safe for mixed breathing species. Exactly what Seelan needed. "Where did you get these?" she whispered. "I bought them with the last of my savings." Her head snapped up. "You what?" "I had no use for the credits anymore." Her voice shook now. "That's impossible, that no one would—" "I did," he said simply. She stood up fast, the vial still in her hand. "Why? Why would you do this?" He looked at her steady. "Because when someone is drowning, you throw a rope. You don't ask what species they are." Tears filled her eyes again. This time one fell, just one. She wiped it quickly, furious with herself. "I don't cry for humans," she said. "You don't have to," he replied. "But I'll cry for you if that helps." She let out a strange sound, not laughter, not a sob, something in between. She sat down again, closer now, closer than before. Later that day, they stood in the cockpit. Stars passed slowly outside the window. Jonas entered a new course into the nav system. Refuge Dome K3, 3 days away. Tyria stared out at the stars. "Will she remember me?" she asked, almost to herself. "She never forgot you," Jonas said. "She just needed to know you were coming back." Tyria turned to him, and in a voice softer than he had ever heard, she said, "I sold myself for her. But you bought me back." Jonas didn't reply. He just nodded, and quietly, inside his chest, something old and cold began to melt. Jonas was at the ship's console checking long-range scans. Tyria stood nearby, reading the latest reply from the refugee dome. Her hands were tight around the datapad. The message was short, but it meant everything. "Seelan is stable, waiting for Mother." She closed her eyes and whispered, "Just a little longer, little one." But the moment was broken. A sharp beep flashed across Jonas's screen. Unregistered, ship approaching. No beacon, no ID. His face hardened. Trouble. Outside, in the deep of space, a black vessel cut across the stars like a blade. No lights, no markings. But Jonas recognized the model. Syndicate. The same slavers who had auctioned Tyria. They had found them. He turned to her. "Get to the back room, lock it down." Tyria shook her head. "No, this isn't a debate," he said, powering up the engines. But she was already grabbing one of the stun batons from the wall. "I know who they are, and I'm not hiding this time." Within minutes, the ship shook. They'd been boarded. Metal. Boots echoed down the hallway. The enemy didn't knock. They forced their way in with cutters and brute force. Jonas stepped into the hall, armed. A tall, alien thug stepped forward, grinning. "We've come for what's ours." Jonas raised his weapon. "She's not yours. You paid for a contract, but you didn't finish paying. She's not property." The thug smirked. "Everything's property to the right buyer." Then, he raised his gun, but before he could fire, Tyria struck first. She leapt from behind a wall and hit the thug square in the back with the stun baton. Electricity lit up the corridor. The slaver dropped like a stone. The others turned in shock, just in time for Jonas to fire. 1 shot. 2. Then the hallway filled with smoke and shouting. Tyria fought like someone who had nothing left to lose. Fast. Fierce. Free. When the dust cleared, 3 slavers were down. The rest were gone, escaped back to their ship. Jonas leaned against the wall, breathing hard. A cut on his arm bled slowly. Tyria dropped the baton, hands trembling. Jonas looked at her. "You okay?" She didn't answer. She just looked around at the mess, the bodies, the smoke, the blood. Then she looked at him. "You could have handed me over. They would have paid." He shook his head. "That was never an option." She walked toward him, slowly, and said something she never thought she'd say to a human. "Thank you." They spent hours repairing the ship, patching holes, Resetting systems, running silent again. That night, Tyria sat across from Jonas in the galley. A single light above them glowed soft and warm. She spoke first. "You should have left me at the, auction." He looked up. "Why?" "Because I've brought you nothing but danger." He smiled gently. "Maybe. But you also brought purpose." She blinked. "Purpose?" He nodded. "Before you, I was just flying. No destination, no meaning, just movement. And now?" Jonas looked straight into her eyes. "Now I'm moving towards something that matters." Tyria didn't know what to say, so she said nothing. But for the first time, she sat without fear, without shame, without chains, and without a price tag on her soul. Outside, the stars kept moving. But inside that small ship, something had stopped. Running. Tyria. For the first time in her life, she let herself rest. Not because she was tired, but because she was safe. The stars outside looked quiet, but inside the ship something had changed. Tyria wasn't watching every move Jonas made now. She didn't sleep with one eye open. She didn't hide her fear behind sharp words or cold silence anymore, because slowly, quietly, she had started to belong. Jonas fixed a control panel near the engine room. Sparks flew. He grunted and wiped his hands. "You're getting better at that," said a voice behind him. He turned. Tyria stood there, arms crossed, smirking slightly. He smiled. "You spying on me now?" "Just making sure the human doesn't break his own ship." Jonas laughed softly. "You're welcome to take over." She paused. "Maybe I will." Later in the galley, they shared a simple meal. Rehydrated stew. Nothing special. But Tyria ate without looking over her shoulder, without thinking of running. And Jonas watched her, quietly, like he always did. When she caught his eyes, she asked, "Why do you always look at me like that?" He didn't answer. Right away. Then he said, "Because I've never seen someone survive everything, and still stand like they matter." Tyria blinked. "You think I matter?" He nodded. "To me, you do." She looked away, her voice quiet. "You didn't buy me to love me, Jonas." "No," he said. "I didn't buy you at all. I bought your freedom." She looked up sharply. "That's just words. In every part of this galaxy, once someone pays for you, they own you. Then maybe this galaxy is wrong." A pause. Heavy. Honest. Then she asked, "And if I choose to stay? Not because I owe you. Not because I have nowhere else to go. But because I want to?" Jonas's voice was steady. "Then I'd be the lucky one." That night they stood in the viewing bay, watching a blue nebula swirl like smoke in space. Tyria leaned on the rail beside him. "Do you think people like us, broken, thrown away, can ever build something new?" Jonas looked at her. "Not alone." She turned her head. "But maybe together?" He nodded. "Maybe together." She reached out slowly. Her hand found his. Not forced, not paid for, not expected. Chosen. Jonas didn't speak. He didn't need to. Because in that quiet moment she gave him something no one else ever had. Trust. And in return, he gave her what no buyer ever offered. Respect. The bond between them wasn't sealed with papers, or rules, or even words. It was built in small moments, in meals shared, in wounds healed, in glances held too long. When Tyria finally said, "You make me feel like I was never for sale," Jonas replied, "You never were." The refugee dome looked nothing like Tyria remembered. 3 years ago it had been broken. Walls cracked, roofs leaking, people lying on metal floors with empty eyes. It smelled like smoke, sickness, and sadness. Now, it stood stronger, repaired, panels, clean air vents, lights that worked. Hope had returned. A little. The ship touched down outside the landing zone. Tyria stood in the open ramp, frozen. Jonas waited beside her, silent. She didn't move. "What if she doesn't know me anymore?" she whispered. Jonas looked at her. "She remembers." She was so small. Tyria said, barely breathing. "So sick." "She's alive because you gave everything," he said. "She knows that." Tyria slowly stepped down, one foot, then another. They walked into the dome. People stopped and stared. Tyria wasn't sure if they recognized her or just sensed the weight she carried. A medical worker approached one of the older nurses. "You're Tyria?" She nodded. The woman's face softened. "She's been waiting." The room was small but bright. A young girl sat on a bed playing with a broken toy. Her skin was pale gray-blue, her eyes wide silver, full of light. Tyria stood in, the doorway frozen again. "Seelan," she whispered. The girl looked up. For a second she didn't move. Then, like sunlight breaking through clouds, she smiled. "Mother?" Her voice was small, fragile, but clear. Tyria fell to her knees, arms open. Seelan rushed into them, and for the first time in years, Tyria held her child again. They didn't speak for a long time, just held. Jonas stood by the door, quiet, his heart heavy in his chest. Seelan peeked up at him. Her small hands clung to her mother's arms. "Who's that?" she whispered. Tyria looked at him too, and smiled, truly smiled. "That's Jonas," she said. "He helped me find you." Seelan tilted her head. "Is he a good human?" Tyria kissed her forehead. "He's the best one." Seelan walked up to him slowly, shyly. She reached out and touched his hand. "Do you tell stories?" she asked. Jonas blinked. Sometimes." She climbed onto the bed. "Can you tell me one now?" Tyria laughed softly. "You don't have to." Jonas sat beside her. "I'd love to." He began a simple story about a quiet man who flew through space, carrying stars in his pocket, looking for someone to save. Seelan's eyes sparkled, and then, without thinking, she leaned her head on his arm and whispered, "Thank you, Father." Jonas froze. Tyria looked up sharply, but Seelan was already falling asleep beside him. Jonas gently tucked the blanket around her. He looked at Tyria, uncertain. "I didn't ask for that." She smiled. "But maybe you earned it." Later that night, Tyria found him standing outside under the dome's soft glass sky watching the stars. "She called you father," she said. He nodded slowly. "I'm not sure I deserve it." "You stayed. You fought. You brought her medicine. You told her stories," she said. "What else do fathers do?" He turned to her. "And what about you?" She stepped closer. "I gave her life." She looked up at him. "But you gave us both something bigger." "What's that?" Tyria reached out and took his hand. "A future." The council hall of the outer colonies had never seen someone like her. Tyria stood tall in the center. No collar, no chains, no fear in her eyes. She wore a cloak made of soft threads, hand-woven by the people of the refugee dome. Her daughter stood beside her, holding her hand tightly, and Jonas, he stood just one step behind her, not in front, not above, beside. The council speaker's voice rang out through the wide chamber. "You were listed as auction property, bought illegally by a civilian. By law, this case must be reviewed." Tyria's voice was calm. "I was not bought. I was saved." The speaker raised an eyebrow. "And the human beside you?" Jonas stepped forward, but Tyria gently touched his hand. "I will speak for us," she said. He nodded and stepped back again. "I was sold because I had nothing left," Tyria said, voice firm. "I gave up my name, my freedom, so my child could live." Murmurs moved through the room. "But the human who found me," she continued, "did not take from me. He gave." Again and again. A silence fell over the chamber. "He had every chance to own me," she said, "but he never did. Instead, he waited. He listened. He respected." She turned to look at Jonas. "And slowly, he became more than my rescuer." She smiled. "He became my choice." One elder leaned forward. "You mean to say, you love this human?" Tyria's answer came without hesitation. "No. I chose him. That is more powerful than love where I come from." Jonas blinked at that. So did many in the room. The speaker stood. Do you wish to become his registered bondmate? Tyria stepped forward. No, she said. A gasp spread across the hall. Even Jonas froze. Then she spoke again, clear, strong. I don't want to be bonded like property. I want to be recognized as his equal. I want partnership, not permission. Jonas smiled slowly. Tyria looked at him. Do you accept that, Jonas Varric? He stepped to her side and held her hand. I always did. And just like that, across a galaxy built on power, trade, and fear, a new bond was formed. Not from laws, not from war, but from will, from choice. Weeks later, in a small home near the stars, Tyria cooked a simple meal while Seelan read from a datapad. Jonas worked nearby repairing a broken transmitter. The light from the window touched them all. Peaceful, normal, real. Seelan looked up suddenly. Mother? Yes? Are we safe now? Tyria smiled. We are. Forever. Jonas chuckled. That's a long time. Tyria leaned over and kissed her daughter's head. Then we'll take it one sunrise at a time. That night, under the stars, Tyria sat beside Jonas. She held his hand, the same way she had on the ship. You know what I was, she said. I know who you are, he replied. She smiled softly. I was once sold like a thing. But now, Jonas whispered, you're something no one can ever price again. She rested her head on his shoulder. Not a slave, she said. Not a pet, he added. They spoke the last part together. But a partner.